The Dragon Age The Veilguard launch is not going well. Let's check it out.
Earlier today, the review embargo for Dragon Age The Veilguard has officially lifted, and now there's lots of new and interesting information being released about the game. One of the more common critiques seems to be with the dialogue. Some examples of that can be seen with this character Tosh.
Wait, so people don't like the dialogue? The game is not being received well? This is news to me. We should check out the numbers. Okay, well, you see the number 70,000, or even the 24-hour peak of 77,000, and you think, wow, that's decent numbers. But then, you think about how much this game cost. This game cost over $250 million. So if we're saying, hey, 77,000 players, right? Times how much is the game? And the base game is $60, right? So $60 times 77,000. So, I mean, it's brand new, right? It just released. So let's just say the 77,000 is the actual number of people who own it total. They made 4,620,000. And that's a big number. That's a big number for any casual rando person who, you know, isn't working some financial banker job or a CEO or something, right? But when you think about the total overall budget, $250 million minus 4,620,000, and so you're saying 245 million in the red? That's not very good. That's really not very good. So they need minimum to break even on what they spent on this game. They need 4,166,000 players to own this game for $60. Not including, you know, the deluxe version or whatever. They need 4,100,000 players. Let's say 4 million, you know, 200,000 players just to make it easy. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad if they only have 77,000 people playing. That's really bad. That's really bad. Looks like it's too early as well for the Steam DB to have an estimate of how many people have purchased. So yeah, just going off of these numbers, if they only have 77,000 people playing, that's real bad.
Jathan said to eat the fruit before it spoils.
I like the cookies better.
Everyone likes the cookies better.
I'll eat the fruit. Thank you, Avatash.
Yeah, this dialogue is pretty dry, pretty empty, pretty boring.
Panahe done. I'll see you soon.
So, the Dragon Hunter has a softer side.
The Kyun says you take care of people.
So, you're a little Kunari, a little Rivani, and a little dragon?
Yeah?
I get that.
Come on. I should tell my mother.
And look at this, look at this. You've chosen to encourage Ta'ash by focusing on the benefits of a multicultural background. Like, this stuff, this woke stuff, DEI stuff being included in these games now, I mean, it's so blatantly in your face. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like a good part of the game. It's just being shoved in your face. And yeah, it takes away from the experience, right? You could have some actually interesting dialogue here, but he's got to make it about some DEI thing, and there's like weird emphasis where it's like, oh yeah, I understand that. That's great that you encourage or you're all about these DEI type things. Like, what is this?
How Karash is doing.
On top of people criticizing the awkward dialogue and the voice acting, many would also point out that pop-up on the left-hand side. You can see it reads, "You've chosen to encourage Tosh by focusing on the benefits of a multicultural background." For example, one commenter would say, "It's totally fine to believe that multiculturalism is a good thing, but to feel that it needs to be an actual plot point spelled out in plain writing, taking place within a dark fantasy video game concerning an epic tale of good versus evil, then it's nothing more than literal politics being shoved down our throats."
Exactly. This is what I said, basically. I mean, yeah, maybe this is worded nicer, but, this is the point. We're in a dark fantasy game, and we're talking about cultural, social, whatever, politics? What? No, we don't need that. No. Focus. If they spent even half as much time, I bet, if they spent even half as much time focusing on the gameplay and the effects of combat, like the special effects and everything, as they spent on the DEI aspects and the wokeness of this game, I bet this game would have 700,000 players right now at launch. Yeah, it's really bad.
It's also more evidence of how a racially diverse cast equal entire thing is going to be loaded with preachy, on-the-nose social lecturing. It's pretty telling when companies like this are unable to make a diverse game, without also making it feel so shallow and fake.
Yeah.
After all, there's been many games that have actually included a very diverse cast of characters, and it turns out when the games aren't so preachy about the whole thing, it comes off much more natural, and those games often find far more success.
Yes, exactly. Baldur's Gate 3, right? Right, in character creation, you have the body types, right? Instead of saying male or female, you have body types. And you can even, like, mix and match genitalia. Like, you have total creative control over your character to make it any sort of, if you want to say woke or whatever type way that you want. But it's not shoved in your face. It's not some, I don't know, it feels more of a benefit rather than taking away from the game because it gives you creative control. And in this game, it just feels like all this stuff is being shoved in your face. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre, the difference. Baldur's Gate 3 is a fantastic game. And so those aspects, it's just another component of a fantastic game. So it's not that the DEI wokeness can ruin a game, but if a game is already not good at the core, the gameplay is kind of crappy and the storytelling is just bad, then it's just going to completely drag the game even further down into the dirt. Yeah, I think so.
Another clip that's going viral in gaming circles is this one.
I'm from Ravane. Not like I follow the Cune.
You've got the arm ropes.
Sure, I wear a lot of stuff. You don't get to tell me who I am. Doesn't matter anyway. The Antom don't follow the Cune either. Not anymore.
A Dragon Age fan, or perhaps
Oh, man. Oh boy. It's so awkward. It just feels so awkward and forced. But you don't get to tell me who I am. Like, it's all got to be about identity, doesn't it? It's all about identity. Oh, man.
perhaps now an ex-Dragon Age fan would say, man, that second clip makes me mad. The Cune is what made the Qunari so interesting. Another post reading, nothing screams a fantasy world more than modern day gender lingo.
Exactly, yes. It just pulls you out of it. The immersion is broken completely. Like this, right in front of my face. Non-binary, I just said. I'm going to use they instead of she from now on. Like, sure. I'm all for it. You guys want to use pronouns out there. You want to, label yourself as non-binary, whatever. If you need these things to feel like you have more of an identity, to make you feel more important, like, that's fine. I care about people. I think we should care about the fact that there's humans around us and we don't want to hurt their feelings. We want to help people to live their best life and things like that. Sure. But forcing this stuff down our throats in our video games and taking us out of a fantasy world that's supposed to be dark fantasy, it really has no place for this kind of stuff. It doesn't fit.
How did gaming get here? The provided screenshot shows Tosh saying, non-binary I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on. Back to the topic of the review embargo, as well as what some people are saying about the reviews. Around 6 hours ago, Fextralife posted a very interesting video about the game. He opens by talking about their history of covering Dragon Age content, including saving the BioWare forums and being in constant communication with EA and BioWare for years. EA had also invited them to attend the official Veilguard preview event back in September, and after attending the event and playing the game there, they made their impressions video. In their preview video, they were essentially cautiously optimistic, enjoying some things about Veilguard, but also critiquing other things like the character designs and models.
I don't know how anybody was even cautiously optimistic about this game from even previews, because even the very early trailers of this game just looked so bad. It did not look fun. It did not look good to me. It looks mediocre. It looks like very aggressively mediocre. And especially for a $250 million budget video game, it should be like stellar. They should have been able to take all the time they needed and put all of the effort and manpower and everything, finances, into making this game incredible. And it's just so aggressively mediocre.
In general, it was a pretty positive impression of the video, and I want to play for you the closing audio from that video right now so you can see what we told our audience at the end of that video. I still have issues with the game, mainly that I don't like the UI and that the dialogues didn't seem to be on par with what you could get in other story-focused games that have come out in the last decade, and that I didn't yet get a point where I felt a bond or much interest with my companions who are integral to the story. It's funny that I have pretty much been playing these games for the story and getting through the combat, but I may actually be playing the Veilguard to enjoy the combat and get through the story to see the...
Yeah, and that's saying something, because the combat is not anything impressive or cool or anything to brag about playing. So that's pretty bad. You're playing through the story to get to the combat. The story is absolutely horrendous. The writing is. And then the combat is nothing to write home about either. So it's just a bad game at this point. I mean, it's just a bad game.
Yeah. How everything works together and progresses into a full game remains to be seen, and there were several big and impactful events that I cannot discuss, but so far my opinion on this has become more positive, and I would like to urge anyone who loves CRPGs to hang in there and wait for reviews and not write the game off just yet.
The point he's making is that their first impressions video was extremely mild, and some people even said that if anything, they were being too positive about the game. And yet it seems like that very impressions video actually upset EA, as after that video was released.
I don't know why they would be upset, because yeah, the way he was talking, it did sound definitely like cautiously optimistic. He wasn't just straight up bashing on it, and kind of like I am right now. But hey, the proof is in the pudding, okay? The player numbers, the reviews from IGN saying it's a 9 out of 10 when we know that IGN is like apparently a shill for all these game companies, because it is not a 9 out of 10. It's almost like seeing a 9 out of 10 from IGN proves that a game is bad these days. It's almost like you need to read that number in the negative. Like it's a -9. It's really bad. It's so bad. That's how it feels anyway.
They entirely ceased communications with Vextra Life. Vextra Life then reached out to other contacts to try and figure out what was going on. And they found out that them and apparently some other creators as well were getting fake assurances from EA that they would be given a code for the game to access it early in order to put out an early review. It turns out that that wasn't the case, as the codes never came, and the communications continued to cease. This is similar to—
Wow, so they just dragged him along, made him think that everything was all good, and then they never got the code. That's kind of, and especially for like he said, a cautiously optimistic video. He wasn't bashing on him really hard or anything. So yeah, that is kind of wild that they didn't get a code after that.
the situation that we discussed just the other day regarding Wolfhard FPS. Interestingly enough, a Spanish trader had reported that she actually lied to BioWare, telling them that she's non-binary. And believe it or not, she actually did receive a code. Someone had responded to her tweet in the included images, saying 0 time played seems a little sus though, to which she responded with a clown emoji and showed that she actually now has an hour and a half played, proving that she does indeed have access to the game before its official release. Apparently, BioWare had actually retaliated against her over this entire situation, as she showed evidence that she had received a DMCA strike, going on to say that the tweet that was hit was the one where she was talking about receiving that code from BioWare. However, she went on to appeal the strike. Twitter—
So all you have to do is notify one of these game devs that you're non-binary and you'll get a code to review the game. So there's no other credentials that matter now. It's just, hey, if you're non-binary, you get a code. What? What? It's discrimination. It is absolutely discrimination. Like in the reverse, right? Because they're picking the minority to take care of instead of the majority. What is going on?
seemingly taking her side and releasing her account. Now returning to Vextra Life in the context of their most recent video on Veilguard, the one where he talks about not receiving a code to get that early review out, well, he goes on to make a very compelling argument about why EA is operating in such a manner, basically claiming that this is a way for them to manipulate the upcoming reviews and ensure that most of the early reviews are going to be positive ones. This would then also allow them to manipulate the sentiment around the game, making it seem overly positive around the time of release.
You know what? BioWare, this is, okay, it's scummy. We can just get that out of the way. It's scummy that they're trying to manipulate the environment around their game and trying to make the conversation, every topic, every point around their game to be positive. Yes, that is scummy. And they shouldn't be doing that. You know, there should be some sort of, I don't know, there should be some sort of repercussion for them doing that. But it's not going to work. Because it's right there in front of everyone's eyes. The writing is so bad. Anyone can watch their favorite creator's gameplay video of this on YouTube, seeing the dialogue before their very eyes, hearing it in their own ears. It's bad. Watch the gameplay, the combat. Oh, it's not much better. Okay, we've got a garbage game here. Don't spend my money on this. Yeah, $60 down the drain is what this game is. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter that they're trying to manipulate the conversation. I'm sure it will for some people who don't have time to do research, but that's not the vast majority, I don't think. I think most people would watch a trailer, watch a gameplay video at least to see if they're actually interested, and then make their decision, and that's enough. That's enough to know, don't buy this game.
With the ultimate goal of having boosted sales.
Because you guys told us in no uncertain terms that you're waiting for reviews, and you're about to get a bunch of reviews that have been curated by the publisher for their likelihood of being extremely positive in an attempt to manipulate your view of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. They want you to think there is a universal consensus that the game is amazing, thereby convincing you that you should try it, but also influencing future review scores, as it's difficult to be the outlier. So if you see a bunch of positive review scores come out today, think about all the people that are going to be playing afterward and how much pressure they're going to feel to give the game a slightly better score than they would have given it, just to avoid maybe some undue pressure.
That's a good point. Yeah, I do think that does probably happen. You see your peers in this reviewing industry, I guess you could say, sub-industry, and you see their higher scores, and you think to yourself, okay, if I really bash on this game, if I'm actually honest here, and it's not the vast majority of players. It is not the vast majority that will come out. But it's that really hyper-vocal 5% on Twitter that's going to come after you and try and cancel you or something crazy. And that hyper-vocal minority is hard to ignore. And so they see this negative comments, this hate, and it's hard to be the outlier and actually be honest when you see the peers rating it so highly. I get it.
Sometimes that doesn't even happen consciously, it's just done subconsciously. And I want to be very clear here that I don't think that the press and creators publishing their videos early are going to be lying. However, these reviewers have been screened to maximize the chances that you're seeing positive reviews. There will probably be some exceptions, of course. I don't think everyone's going to give the game a positive review. But EA is banking that those are few and far between in an attempt to keep the aggregate score of the game high.
Once again, I do think he's making a very compelling argument as to the potential logic behind EA's actions.
Yeah. They're just manipulating the space, right? They're trying to control it as much as possible. Let's shape it, let's form it to be the closest we can get to a 10 without any, outliers speaking out. Yeah. That seems to be what's happening.
However, I myself am also a bit more cynical, it seems. While I'm sure that there are going to be people who genuinely do enjoy the game, including some who are reviewing it, I absolutely do think that there are going to be some people who are lying about just how much they enjoyed the game. It goes without saying that we can call such people shills. I'd also like to go back to Wolfhard FPS's tweet once again, but here's why. Some of the responses to it are extremely amusing and
I can see, I don't know about shills exactly. Maybe, sure. There are those types, of course, but so, going back to the number of players, right? You see 77,000. It's not a very high number, but so anyway, 77,000. That could purely be the section of the Dragon Age fan base that now is, in their 30s. They have decent jobs. They have money to blow, and they've already seen or heard, or they just don't care about the news that's come out. They have extra money, and they're just like, I don't really care. I'll just throw it at it because I'm a Dragon Age fan. And we'll just see what the game is like myself, That could be what's making up those numbers right now. And it's not enough. It's not going to carry this game through to even breaking even. They're going to need a lot more sales for that. And even more than that to make something off of this game, right? If they want to make 100 million off of this game, they're going to need a lot of sales.
Predict some of the very reasonable logic that we already talked about analyzing the entire situation. For example, this tweet reading, "My dude, I get that it sucks that you and others didn't get codes, but suggesting that's because you weren't a big fan of the game is freaking ridiculous, and leaving this post up is just going to give the chuds more brain-dead reasons to attack the game, devs, and fans alike, because apparently analyzing a situation where corporations may be operating in shady manners and analyzing the logic behind such actions, including their drive to manipulate public sentiment, well, doing that just makes you a chud. Once again, like I said yesterday, there's this weird crossover with some of the largest bootlickers on the internet, some of the biggest corporate defenders out there, simultaneously LARPing as if they're wonderful activists. Another commonly shared sentiment between Dragon Age fans is that Veilguard just doesn't feel like a Dragon Age game, and people are often wondering what happened to BioWare. I myself am wondering that. I really enjoyed Dragon Age Origins. It was pretty sick.
really fun game. And it was dark. It was gritty. There was a little bit of humor sprinkled in, but it made sense. It never pulled me out of the experience. It was always about the story. It was always about what was going on for the characters. And it was never like some socio-psychological whatever nonsense DEI stuff that is going on now. And the art style was actually dark. It fit a dark fantasy world. The art style in this new game, it feels like a cartoon. Like we're leaning towards cartoon. It's so weird, or like a Pixar film or something. It's got that weird smooth look to it. Almost like AI, actually. Maybe they used AI for a lot of their modeling or something. But yeah, it just doesn't look like Dragon Age anymore. It doesn't feel like Dragon Age. It's so weird.
Myself haven't played that many BioWare games. However, one of my favorite PC games of all time, and one that helped inspire my love for PC gaming, is in fact the original Neverwinter Nights. So I found this particular part of Mr. Matty Plays video to be very interesting.
Let's get into it, starting with the narrative. This is what I have the most to say about when it comes to the game itself, because it's where I think most of the problems in Dragon Age the Veilguard lie. Tonally, this is just not a Dragon Age game. There's no other way to put it for me. In writing, in music, in visuals, in character work, there were many points throughout my review process where I felt my hands were on an entirely different IP.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair to say. And it could have something to do with the fact that, it's been 10 years or more, I forget exactly, since the last Dragon Age game. And so it's it's a mostly different team in BioWare at this point. Completely different, churn through of employees. And so there's just a different mindset. I don't know. Maybe this is just something that's kind of spreading in general in the gaming industry. Not necessarily into every corner, right? Because we still see shining star video games that are just insanely good with good writing and everything. But in general, it might be something that's kind of become a trend everywhere. And it's not going to last if they make games overall like this. This trend needs to stop because gamers are not interested. We want good games, man. Just make a good game. Good gameplay, cool story, maybe some cool graphics if you have the budget or time for it. But really, if it's just a fun game at its core, you don't even need the extra flashy stuff.
Now, before I go forward, I just want to frame my criticism a little bit more here, in that I have been a lifelong BioWare fan. My favorite game of all time is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is a 2003 RPG from BioWare.
I love this game, KOTOR, so good. And the fact that Saber Interactive got approved to be, or it has been developing the remake of this game, super excited. Space Marine 2, absolute killer game. And so having them do the remake of this, it leaves me very excited.
But also, they have made games, as you know, like Mass Effect, like Dragon Age Origins. But I have also not fooled myself that the people who made those games I adore so much are no longer at the company, or at least most of them aren't.
Yep, that's something that I just said, right? Yeah, the company's probably completely different at this point. At least at the very ground level. All the people doing the work are probably mostly gone that worked on those older games. So yeah.
Unfortunate realization that many of us are having with companies like BioWare, and of course also companies like Bethesda, specifically with BioWare and Veilguard. It seems like they're more intent on pushing out their old fans, and instead trying to find a new group of fans, a more modern group of fans.
Well, they're not going to find any. You try to appeal to general audiences, and you end up losing. You just lose overall. You don't end up with any audience,
as these corpos like to say. Ultimately, while many of the reviews coming out today are overly optimistic and positive about the game, there are still some reviews that are much more critical, and as some would say, much more real about their opinions. As mentioned, please consider checking out Mr. Matty Plays video, which I'll link in the description. Another review that seems very interesting, and yet one that I have not had the time to check out yet, is the one released by SkillUp, fittingly titled, "I do not recommend Dragon Age the Veilguard." Based off some of the top comments though, it seems like one of the criticisms he might include in his video is one that we've talked about in prior videos on Veilguard, which is seemingly how the devs didn't want the player to be able to make any sort of evil choices, that they'd be too quote-unquote icky, so to speak.
What? Come on. That's one of the most fun aspects, right? Again, we can go back to Baldur's Gate 3. You can go on a completely destroy everything run if you want to. And the player should be able to do that. If you're going to open up a game to give you to have full choice, they should have full choice. Go in any path, in any direction they want to. That's what was so fun. Fable. Fable, for me, really coined this. I don't know about in general in the whole industry, but for me, Fable really cemented this idea of like, oh, a game where you can just do whatever you want? This is crazy. It's so fun. It just opens up so much to the player. So yeah, it's bizarre to make that choice. Oh, we don't want to do the icky stuff. We don't want evil. But I mean, it's just a video game. That should be up to the player if they want to make that choice. They don't have to. They don't have to go that route. I still haven't done a fully evil, like, destroy everything run in Baldur's Gate 3. Because, I mean, that's just my choice. That's just not my play style, right? I like to try and be the good guy. But other players, if they want to do it, they can, and they should be able to, you know? It's fun.
Which was apparently some of the logic as to why they also removed the options for blood magic. As you know, many people and companies are currently attempting to prop this game up. However, given how terrible the situation looks, it seems highly unlikely that they'll succeed in the long run. Ultimately, of course, make up your own opinion on this game, but from what I've seen so far, it's not looking good at all. One of the most disturbing things, as we just talked about a moment ago, is how so many gaming companies like BioWare, etc., have willingly decided to go down this path. Let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and if you enjoyed my coverage, please consider liking and or subscribing to the channel. Appreciate ya, and I'll see you in the next one.
Wow. So, BioWare trying to, well, I guess more EA, but EA trying to control the narrative on this game and push it out to be, oh, this is definitely a 9 out of 10 game, 10 out of 10 game. Everybody, you should play this game. Everybody buy Dragon Age Veilguard. Nah, we've seen the gameplay. We've seen enough clips. It's horrible writing, horrible, weird, like, force it down your throat political writing, and not much better combat and actual gameplay. Yeah, so it's looking like a bad game. 77,000 players sounds like a decent number, but again, we went over that. They're not even close to making back the money they spent on this game with those numbers. It's looking like BioWare might be in a little bit of trouble if their next game, maybe even this game, maybe this game kills BioWare. Who knows? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that kind of a loss will take them down or not. They're supposedly working on the next Mass Effect game. If they do not absolutely crush it on that next Mass Effect game, they're probably gone. BioWare is probably gone, let's be honest. Yeah, it's sad that they're trying to control the conversation around this game, and it's really not going to work, because we can see it with our own eyes. The game is not good. So anyway, this was an interesting video to watch. I enjoyed it, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.